Okay, it's May 2018. We're looking at a new development build for the Denture module, version 4.2.1. Right now, we're in the normal surgical guide module, and we're going to import the surfaces for the case. The surfaces can be imported either just by multi-selecting and dragging into the software the relevant surfaces, and we could see how it shows up in the 3D view with their proper occlusion being maintained, or we could go to File, New Project, STL file only, and we could go ahead and multi-select any relevant models or surfaces and press OK. Now when they're imported, it's important to verify that they're in the same general direction and orientation as the head in the bottom left of the screen. This situation is great, it's fine. If they're not oriented correctly, then you could go to the model manipulation panel, which we currently have open, and click Align Model Position Manually, and just use the widget to left grab and to rotate to orient them into the proper relevant positioning. If you do go ahead and change the positioning of one model, to orient the second one accordingly while maintaining occlusion is simple. Just select the opposite opposing model and click Align to Model, and now we're going to be aligning the lower to the upper, so we choose upper and choose OK, and now we see that the lower model has moved accordingly and the occlusion is maintained. The dialog box comes up to tell us that this module is in development. If you don't want to see it anymore, click Don't Show Again, and either way click the OK button. We're now going to be adding teeth by clicking on the tooth with the red plus, and here we have a drop down of all the available teeth libraries. We've added the checkbox Show Physical Teeth Sets. Let's uncheck that for a second. And now we're seeing all the teeth sets that could be exported from the software. So once the denture is fabricated, you could export the denture together with the teeth. We're going to be adding libraries of teeth that cannot be exported for situations where we're going to be creating the denture base and then adding the physical teeth separately later. So in that situation, you click Show Physical Teeth Sets, non-exportable, because these teeth sets are not exportable. And then once those are added to the software, you'll have the drop down of those teeth sets. So it really depends on what kind of denture and denture base you want to be exporting from the software. Now we have the option of selecting all the maxillary teeth, all the mandibular teeth, and the option of selecting all teeth. So we're going to click Select All Teeth, and if you want to be able to manipulate all the teeth together as a teeth chain that are connected, maintaining relevant spacing and occlusion, then you click the Add Selected Teeth as Teeth Chain button. Now move the arrow and hold down the Shift key to left click on the model in the general positioning where you want to have the teeth added. The software goes through a process of adding and simplifying the teeth meshes. And once that is done, a widget appears surrounding all of the teeth that allows us to make large changes to the positioning of the teeth, and we could place them in the correct positioning. Let's focus on the anterior when doing this to put the anterior teeth in the correct positioning. Now in terms of the surfaces panel, let's just take a look at the list that we have here. Right now we have a long list of our different teeth and surfaces. We have different filters that allows us to choose, do we want to see the surfaces connected to the maxillary and or the mandible? So we could go ahead and filter that accordingly. And we also have different options for the teeth, the models, which are the models we imported, custom abutments, dentures, which are going to be the denture bases that we create, reduced teeth if at the end of the process there are teeth that intersect with the model, the software will reduce those teeth, will create additional surfaces, and that will be our reduced teeth. And byproducts, which are let's say models with undercuts removed or any surfaces that are created during the process of creating the dentures. So we could go ahead and use the different filters. If we only want to see the lower and we only want to see the teeth, then we could go ahead and do something like this. So it allows us to quickly access the different surfaces. We can make them visible or invisible by checking the checkboxes and lock them in place, etc., etc. Now we could switch over to our denture panel. The denture panel allows us to do several different things before starting the actual denture fabrication. First of all, if we want to fine-tune the positioning of any individual tooth, we could click Manipulate Model. We could then put a widget over an individual tooth, and we could use the widget just by left-clicking, grabbing and dragging, or rotating to fine-tune the positioning of a particular tooth. If we want to move the teeth as a tooth chain, which maintains the relative positioning and occlusion, then we go back to where we were before, Show Hide Teeth Chain, clicking the Show Hide Teeth Chain button, and we now have the green dots that show up. The green dots allow us to lock teeth into place. If we click on the green dot, the dot turns red, and the location of those teeth will be locked. So in order to start the positioning process, you should go ahead and lock the teeth which you don't want to move, and then you could go ahead and manipulate the others. Holding down the Shift key and left clicking allows you to grab a tooth and to drag it and to manipulate the positioning. Now if you want the opposing arch to move together with the arch that you're moving, select Move Opposing Tooth, check that, and now when you move the tooth, it will move the opposing arch as well. So you could go ahead, so you could position the tooth and then lock it and continue positioning the teeth and locking their position. You could also grab the most posterior tooth, grab and drag that, and that will move the entire tooth chain. You could go ahead and do that for the other side as well. Manipulating the positions, locking the teeth. And again, if we want to fine-tune the position of any individual tooth, go to Manipulate Model, click on the tooth, and use the widget. We have the ability to hide a full teeth set, a full tooth chain, or to right-click or to right-click on a model and choose Toggle Visibility and hide it. Now we're going to start with the fabrication process for the denture. In order to do so, select the proper model, select if you're creating an upper or lower, and then click Create Denture. We're able to set the offset or to have a 0 offset. This is the offset for the denture base that we're going to be creating, and we have the ability to allow undercuts or to not allow any undercuts by unchecking the button. If we do want to allow undercuts, then we could use the slider to change the undercut default value if we would like to do so. The dark brown in the 3D view represents the undercuts that will be removed. We can manipulate the positioning of the arrow and see how that dark brown adjusts accordingly. And here we could decide the insertion direction and see the undercuts that will be removed. We could define the posterior palatal seal. Also, we could rotate the model by using the drop down on the top right of the view. So we could use that to orient. And we could define the palatal seal by clicking the button, holding down the Shift key, clicking once for the first point, clicking again for the second point. If you want to fine-tune that positioning, just grab the circle while holding down the shift key and left clicking, and that will fine-tune the positioning. We have different settings here that could affect the curvature and height of the curves and the thickness of how deep it will be impressed. Once we have the settings set, we could go ahead and click on the next button. We see that the posterior palatal seal has been created into the model. We go on to step 2 of 6 of the process, select denture base, and here we're able to select the thickness of the denture base and the offset. And what we're going to do now is hold down the shift key and left click. We're going to define the area on which we want the denture base to be created. So again, I'm holding down the shift key, I'm left clicking as I go around, and we go back to the start point and just drag and connect to the start point. If we want to modify the positioning of any of the circles, of any of the nodes that we placed, hold down the shift key, just grab and drag. To add a node, just hold down the shift key and left click on the empty space. Once we have our curve created, we go ahead and press next. We are now going to define the gingiva base. So we're going to, at this point, define how high we want the gingiva to be built up around the area of the teeth. So we can modify this plane. We could raise it to the level of the proximate contacts between the teeth. And we could go ahead and press on next. Now step 4, we're going to select the area of gingiva that we want built up. In the previous step, we selected the height to which it should be built up, and now we're going to select the area generally around the base of the teeth that we want to have that built up gingiva. It's the same process as before, holding down the shift key, left clicking as we go around, and then back to the beginning point, and then we press next. Now we're able to use different editing tools to edit the gingiva. So if we click add remove, we could hold down the shift key and kind of drag the gingiva upwards, and we could see how that covers more of the base of the teeth. If we wanted to, let's say if we wanted to remove some of the gingiva height that's between the teeth, instead of using the shift key to add gingiva, we could use the control key, and that will subtract, and then we could roll over the top of the teeth, and that will remove some of the gingiva. If we want to locally, let's say we wanted to increase the gingiva here, we could use local deform, hold down the shift key, and just grab and drag. Now here we have a tool size slider, so we could go ahead and do that. If we wanted, for example, to show the bulge for the roots of the teeth, we can make our tool a little bit smaller, use the shift key to add, and then just shift and left click to add those bulges. Once we're done with that process, go ahead and click on next. And now we're at the last step of the denture fabrication process. Here we could define our teeth offset, so that's going to be an extra buffer around the area that's subtracted out for the teeth. The denture thickness is the minimum thickness of the denture that we're going to allow the software to allow. And if we want to create a tooth reduction coping as well, which will allow us to manually reduce the physical teeth based on the holes in the denture, then we could click tooth reduction coping. And then we click the finalize button. The software is going to do some processing. And now we're going to switch over to our surfaces panel to see what was created. First of all, we're only going to take a look at the mandible. Let's start taking a look first at our dentures. Okay, so let's actually, before we do that, let's take a look at the teeth, because we're going to be hiding the teeth. So we have all of our teeth listed here. We could hide them by clicking visible on the top of the checkbox column, and that's hiding our teeth. We see that there still looks like there's still some teeth here, and that's because we also have reduced teeth. Okay, these were teeth that were created because they were intersecting with the model. The software has automatically reduced the part of the tooth that was intersecting with the model so it won't interfere with the patient's anatomy. And those are separate surfaces for reduced teeth. If we hide those, then those disappear as well. Okay, so now we can look at our denture bases that we have. First we have the denture base without anything being subtracted from it. Then we have the denture base with the teeth subtracted and that additional offset buffer for the teeth. So it's subtracted plus the offset, I think was 0.2 millimeters. So we now have this surface as well. And we also have the reduction, the coping reduction surface that was created. If we're going to be manually reducing physical teeth, then we could insert them into this base. And if we turn over the base with the teeth, then the part that's protruding through the base is the part of the tooth, of the physical tooth, that should then be reduced. So we have our reduction coping. If we go to File, Export Data, we then have the ability to export any of these surfaces. So we have our models, we have the surface with the undercut, we have our different denture base, the base that doesn't have anything subtracted with the subtractions and the reduction coping, and we also have our long list of teeth. The teeth that we see that has the R in front of it and then the dash are the reduced teeth. So if we want to export only the reduced teeth, then we go ahead and select those checkboxes. If we want to export the non-reduced teeth, then we select those checkboxes. So if we want to export the denture base with a full set of teeth, we could select denture base, select all of the reduced teeth so that they won't be protruding through the denture base, and then not all the teeth were reduced, so the ones that weren't reduced we're going to select as well, so we'll have a full set of teeth, and then we're going to press export. Let's save it to the desktop. And then if we open it from the desktop, we have our base with all of our teeth inside of it. Now we could go back to our surfaces panel, select maxillary, choose to see the teeth, turn all of those on, choose to see the models, turn on the upper, and we could go ahead and restart the process for the upper jaw by clicking denture panel, selecting upper model, selecting maxilla, and clicking Create Denture.